Greetings, I'm the man behind the mask, and I'd like to talk to you about hockey. Well, the 2012 Stanley Cup Playoffs are now done and over with. And what a ride it has been, with the Los Angeles Kings making their mark in the history books as the 2012 Stanley Cup champions. And now, to help me close things out properly, I shall once again call upon my trusty playoff co-host.
So this album is one of a kind and has some great potential.
PK, what the hell?
You know, you should really knock or drop a line or something before invading my...
Yeah. Are you gonna get changed for this video or what?
Of course! Alright, as sad as I am to see this season end, it's been very entertaining and a lot of fun. I'm ready to put the 2012 playoffs to bed. And no, not in that way.
Well, before we dig into the finals, what were your thoughts on the matchups throughout the playoffs this year?
You know, we had our favorite teams that were there and that were going to roll over everybody else and make it to the finals. But this year we got something completely different. Over in the West, we had the least favorite team to make it to the finals make it. And over in the East, we had fights, we had lots of goals, we had suspensions, and then we had the sixth place team make it past everybody to make it to the finals. This year we had record-breaking things happen. We had that last year. But it was also a history year for the NHL Playoffs. 2012 is going to be something that everyone will remember happened. I mean, what about you, sire? What are your thoughts?
Well, even though there were quite a few never-before-seen pairings in the playoffs this year, I think the unexpected results that followed each round, especially the first, were what really made this year memorable for me. Hell, in the bracket pool I was in, there were only 3 teams that no one bet on to win the Cup. New Jersey, Phoenix, and LA. All 3 of which made it to the conference finals, and 2 of which made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. In a year when an 8-seed team is taking out the top-seeded teams left and right like they were nothing, it just further proves how meaningless seeds and rankings can become in the playoffs. Any team can beat any team on any given day. But with all the great series that we were treated to in the first 3 rounds, I have to ask, which one was your favorite, PK?
Well, you know, I love fighting. I love goals. And overall, I love seeing the playing of Jonathan Quick in net. However, for my favorite series out of the entire playoffs this year, I'm going to have to say Pittsburgh and Philly. I mean, that was one of the unexpected things you ever saw. I didn't expect to see Sidney Crosby be that way. He's not that type of player, and yet he shocked everybody. I didn't expect to see goal after goal after goal in a game where it became a double-digit score on one side. I didn't expect to see a lot of things out of that series, and yet here we are watching this live, and it's just jaw-droppingly good and bad at the same time. That series had it all, and that actually, out of everything, was my favorite series out of the playoffs. What about you? What was your favorite series?
I would have to name the same series as my favorite as well. What can I say? I'm a sucker for the classic rivalries. Whether it was the hype the media gave it, the tension that built between the 2 clubs in the last stretch of the season, or the sheer goal-scoring insanity that followed, this series certainly delivered some great entertainment. Especially in Game 3, when the Penguins became a tad unhinged. If Pittsburgh had somehow forced a Game 7 in this series, I shudder to think how crazy that 7th game might have been. But now, on to the main topic, the Stanley Cup Finals. While not as back and forth as last year, this year's finals were still very exciting. With the exception of Games 3 and 6, it was a very evenly matched series where the slightest inch spelled either victory or defeat for one of the two clubs. The goaltending was great, the defense tight, and the offense providing many nail-biting moments as their chances kept on piling up. What were your thoughts on this year's Stanley Cup Finals, PK?
Now, if you ask me, this was actually a really good series. We had some close games, 2-1, overtime wins, but you also had those ones that were blowouts. You had LA that was up 3-0 and they were looking to sweep. However, New Jersey actually came around and made some close games again and made it so that it was an actual series in Games 4 and 5. Game 6, however, not so much. LA pounced on a 5-minute power play and they got 3 goals in that 5 minutes. The series was pretty much done, everything was in the bag, and LA was supposed to win it at home. All the stars came out to see it, you see tweets all over the place, and the first time in 41 years, LA wins the Stanley Cup. And deservingly so. They did an excellent job throughout the playoffs, and congratulations to them. New Jersey, you did your best. However, I'm sorry to say that New Jersey, better luck next time. I loved it. I really did. After LA beat Vancouver and they beat the second round team, St. Louis, I started to cheer for them. I couldn't help it. They were supposed to win. And after all, in the last 3 rounds, I went 7 for 7.
Yeah, it seems that once Vancouver was no longer a factor, you were dead on with calling the remaining rounds. I guess that's the price you sometimes pay when you hold tight to your hometown team. But then again, you were not alone in thinking that the Canucks would have done better. This was certainly one of those years where if you flip the rankings upside down, you might have a more accurate representation of how the teams played. But now that everything is said and done, fans and players around the league get to regroup over the summer before going at it again for the 2012-2013 season. Thanks for joining me throughout these playoffs, PK. Jeez. Okay, couldn't you have at least waited until we finished the video?
What? Like last year? Ah, hell no! For 2 months I've been growing this goatee. Do you know how much food and drink got lost in this thing? You know, I just couldn't take it anymore. It had to go.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I like to work alone some days. Well, again, thanks for joining me throughout these playoffs, PK.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for having me on for the playoffs. Hopefully next season will be exciting as it was for the past few seasons, and maybe we'll team up again for next year's playoffs. Anyways, this is PK saying see you later. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go find my other clothes. Thanks again, guys.
Well, that's all for our coverage of the 2012 Stanley Cup Playoffs. So until next time, take care, everyone.